So looking at this question again, they've asked me to solve, which means I need to find an answer. So this is going to be an x equals type of thing. A couple of things I notice when I first look at this problem is that I think I'm actually dealing with a quadratic. And part of my reasoning for that is that I see an x squared and an x and some numbers. So I've got a few indicators there to suspect that this might be a quad. And in that fact, I need to think about doing something to it first, which is, number one, if you're going to solve a quadratic, set it equal to 0. If you do not rearrange this first so that it's something blah 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 x blah 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 equals 0, we cannot do it. So thinking about basic algebra skills, right now I've got a positive 16 on this side of the equation, which is like a plus 16. So if I need to move that to the other side of the equation, I need to think minus 16. So this becomes 2x squared minus 3x minus 4 minus 16 equals 0. And now I'll simplify these like terms. Minus 4 and minus 16 will give me minus 20. So 2x squared minus 3x minus 20 is equal to 0. So first step complete. We have it set equal to 0. Now that we've got that done, we can think about factoring this. And with a quadratic, remember we should get it into double brackets. So this one appears to be a little bit more challenging, and my hint for that is that I have a 2 in front of my x squared. I don't have a 1x squared. It doesn't just say x squared. It says 2x squared. So the first thing I'm going to check is, can I actually factor a 2 out of all of these numbers? So I can take a 2 out from the x squared, but I cannot take a 2 out from the 3. There's no way for me to remove a 3 or factor out a 2 from that 3. I could do it from the 20, but since I can't take out a 2, I actually have to think about doing this a different way. So these are actually the quads, the hard ones. They're not that bad once you figure out the method for it, but our first step is going to be to times the first and the last terms. So 2 times negative 20 is going to give me negative 40. And my next question then is, of those numbers negative 40, which of them are going to combine together to give me a negative 3? So I need to think of factors of negative 40, 1 and 40, 2 and 20, how about 5 and 8? So if we take a look at these, do I have any of these combinations that I can add or subtract in such a way that I could get a negative 3? And in fact, this is my solution here. The 5 and the 8, I can make one positive and one negative, and I will get the negative 3. So what I'm going to do now is rewrite that middle term, splitting it out into those two different factors of 5 and 8. So I now have 2x squared, and I'm going to say, well, I need a negative 3, so the bigger one's going to have to be negative, so it's going to be negative 8x plus 5x minus 20 is equal to 0. So again, that was timesing the first and the last terms. 20 times negative 2 times negative 20, and that gave me the negative 40. Then I thought of what can times together to give me negative 40, but can add together to give me the negative 3. And again, that's going to be 8 and 5. And I need to have one positive, one negative, because my last term here is a negative. So I need a negative times a positive, and the bigger number is going to be negative because my middle number is negative. So now that I've got this done, I'm going to think about splitting this expression with 4 terms on the side in half. And I want to imagine, what can I actually factor out from these first two things? What do they have in common? First thing I notice is that they both have an x, so I'm going to pull an x out the front. And the next thing is that they both have a 2, so I'm going to pull a 2 out. So if I pull this out, 2x, what times 2x will give me 2x squared? And that in fact is another x. The minus will stay there, and I think again, 2x times what will give me negative 8x? In this case it's a 4. 2 times negative 4 will give me the negative 8, and the x is still there. And now I'm going to do the same thing to this back part and think about factoring out these bits. So what's in common between 5x and negative 20? and in this case it is a plus 5. So if I pull a 5 out from 5x, I'll just have the x remaining inside. 5 times x gives me 5x again. And here I've got 5 times something to give me negative 20. Well, 5 times 4 will give me 20, and I need to make it a negative, so that needs to be a negative 4. And as a hint for yourself, at this point, you should see two things in brackets that are the exact same. And if you don't, you might want to reconsider the answer that you've got so far and check for any mistakes. So since these are the same, for x minus 4 and x minus 4, I can actually factor those out. And by doing that, I'm going to pull these two parts at the front out and put them into one bracket. 2x plus 5. Make sure you take the sign. If it's a negative, you would take the negative with it. So it's plus 5. Put that into one set of brackets, and we drop this down. The x minus 4 is factored at the back. And this is almost our final answer. It is actually our final step for factoring this, and now we can actually solve it. So all that was still equal to 0. So again, that was first times last gives me negative 40. Think of things that times to negative 40 but add to negative 3. So I had minus 8 and plus 5. Then I want to split that in half, factor the front into one set of brackets, factor the back into another set of brackets. If the brackets match, I'm in good shape. So I write that bracket in my answer, and I pull the parts in front of that into another bracket up the front. And now we're dealing with a quadratic that's been set equal to 0. So I can think again about 2x plus 5 is equal to 0, or x minus 4 is equal to 0. So with quadratics, the final step, set either set of brackets to 0, and we'll find two solutions. This one, in fact, is going to be 2x is equal to negative 5, so x is equal to negative 5 over 2. And the other solution is going to be x is equal to 4. And remember, there are two solutions with these quadratics. So here we have x is equal to negative 5 over 2, or x is equal to 4. And there's another video that you can check out, factoring quads, hard ones, on my playlist that you should be able to find. And that goes again through more detail of how to factor these particular style of quadratics.